Today, we're going to cover the Steven Universe series from beginning to end in detail. So sit tight, relax, and let's get into the video. The show follows the adventures of a young boy named Steven Universe who lives in the town of Beach City with a group of magical beings called the Crystal Gems. As Steven grows up, he learns about his heritage, develops his own unique powers, and becomes an integral part of the Crystal Gems. So what are these gems, and how did they come into existence? Well, for those answers, we'll have to go centuries back in time. In the world of Steven Universe, there's this planet called Homeworld where all these cool gems live. We don't really know how they came to be, but we can guess that some natural stuff happened and boom, they became conscious and got bodies. Anyways, so on Homeworld, there's this whole pecking order with diamonds at the top, bossing around servant pearls, and having bodyguard rubies. It's like a gem hierarchy or something. Oh, and also there's this really powerful gem called White Diamond, who's like a godly figure. She was the first ever gem to take physical form and had this whole idea of making everything perfect. That's why she came up with this caste system where different gems have different roles and statuses. She had her sisters, the blue, yellow, and pink diamonds, who helped her in running the show. White was the big boss, responsible for setting up Gemkind's identity. Yellow was in charge of the military stuff, while blue handled the cultural side of things. And little pink, well, she was like, the cute little sister who threw parties and celebrated the achievements of the other diamonds. So that's how the gem hierarchy was established. Pink Diamond, despite having a smaller role in the government, felt bored and wanted to have her own colony. So after some convincing and pleading, she was finally granted permission. And you won't believe which planet she chose to colonize. It's good old Earth, of course. Pink saw the potential in Earth and wanted to make it her own gem colony. Little did she know that this decision would have a huge impact on the future and the fate of the Crystal Gems. Around 6,000 years ago, things started getting real on Earth with the whole colonization gig. They built these kindergartens to extract gems, but it messed up the natural environment big time. But there was one gem who wasn't having any of it. Rose Quartz stepped up to the plate with her partner in crime Pearl and formed the Crystal Gems. These rebels were all about saving Earth and sticking it to the Diamond Authority, smashing the whole caste system they forced on everyone. The rebellion kept gaining momentum, and things started spiraling out of control for Pink Diamond. She just couldn't ignore the truth anymore and confessed to the other diamonds that the Earth colony was a lost cause. But guess what? The other diamonds didn't take her seriously and just brushed off her concerns like it was no big deal. As the Crystal Gems expanded their ranks, they realized the importance of having a reliable arsenal. And that's where Bismuth came in. With her expertise, they constructed a forge that provided them with a plentiful supply of weapons. Initially, it seemed like a game changer for their cause. However, things took a dark turn when Bismuth's ideology clashed with Rose's vision of preserving life. Bismuth went down a dangerous path and developed a weapon designed to shatter other gems. In order to protect the unity of the Crystal Gems and prevent any harm, Rose made the difficult decision to trap Bismuth in a bubble, keeping her hidden from the rest of the group. Before the incident with Bismuth, a gem called Lapis Lazuli had visited the Earth and got poofed by Bismuth. Poofing is basically a situation where a gem loses its physical body for a short amount of time. Anyways, Lapis was reduced to a gem, and thinking that she is one with the Crystal Gems, the Homeworld imprisoned her in a mirror. Little did they know that this would also have significant implications down the line. The Great War waged on for hundreds of years, and the Homeworld seemed to have the upper hand. Seeing that the Homeworld is not backing down, Rose devised a horrifying plan. She used Pearl, who used to be a servant of the Pink Diamond, to betray and stab her in the back. This led to the shattering, or rather the death of Pink Diamond, something that would drastically change the course of this war. When Pink Diamond bit the dust, her other Diamond sisters were, not too happy about it. So, instead of throwing in the towel, they decided to give Earth a taste of their revenge. They they conducted all these crazy experiments, fusing gems together and creating this monstrosity called the cluster. It's like this huge mess of deformed gems, all suffering in pain. They shoved the cluster right into the heart of the Earth, where it's slowly chomping away at the planet. In their attempt to clean up their mess, the diamonds decide to wipe out the remaining gems on Earth with a beam. But instead of snuffing them out, the beam actually ended up corrupting their minds and turning them into total nutcases. The homeworld invasion came to an end after, like, 1,000 years of war, and Earth was left with a bunch of mindless, corrupted gems running amok. The only survivors were Pearl and Garnet, who were shielded from the corruption thanks to Rose's protection. Oh, and let's not forget about Bismuth and Lapis, who were trapped in their gem forms inside of a bubble and a mirror. In the future, the crystal gems only consist of Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and Steven. And now we will look into each of their backstories. So, we already know that Pearl teamed up with Rose during the rebellion and was the first ever crystal gem, so we will just go ahead and move on to Garnet. Now, during the rebellion, Blue Diamond held a court on Earth to punish those rebel crystal gems. As part of her entourage, she sent a Sapphire along with 3 ruby guards to observe the proceedings. But, surprisingly, Rose and Pearl swooped in and disrupted the court. During the chaos, an accident occurred, causing one of the ruby guards to accidentally fuse with the Sapphire, and voila! Garnet, a fusion of a ruby and a sapphire, was born. Now, one thing that I have not mentioned is that gems have the capability to fuse with each other and form a new gem. Guys, it's pretty awesome. But here's the bummer. The Diamond Authority is absolutely totally against fusion between different gems. So, when Ruby and Sapphire fused, everyone, including the diamonds, got all disgusted and outraged. Blue Diamond ordered the court to shatter Ruby for daring to fuse with a gem from a higher class, but Sapphire grabbed Ruby's hand and they took off a runnin'. They escaped the clutches of the Diamond Authority and then find themselves on Earth. With no home to return to, they have a heart-to-heart about the messed up situation, and surprisingly, they start falling in love. From that point on, they encounter Rose, who offers them a chance to join the Crystal Gems and fight against the homeworld invasion. Feeling like there's no turning back, they make the decision to join Rose and become a vital member of the rebellion. Oh, and just so we can avoid any confusion, Garnet is referred to as a female character in the show. Thank you. Alright, now let's move on to Amethyst. So, back in the day when the Diamond Authority was all about colonizing Earth, they set up this kindergarten to extract gems. But when the war ended and the diamonds hightailed it out of there, they left the place abandoned. Now fast forward about 500 years, and out pops Amethyst from the kindergarten. Poor thing, she was just a bit late to the party. Luckily, Rose found Amethyst and welcomed her into the Crystal Gems, making her an official member of the team. Alright, and lastly, we have the protagonist himself, Steven Universe. But for that, we have to go back to when Rose met Steven's father, Greg. You see, after the Crystal Gems were reduced to Rose, Pearl, Garnet, and Amethyst, they decided to reside in a place away from the chaos of the world. So they built a place on a beach, which they called the Crystal Temple. This became their sanctuary, where they resided for thousands of years. In the year 1980, Greg was a failed pop star who had only one person show up to his concerts, which just so happened to be Rose. One thing led to another, and the two fell in love. Sometime later, she gave birth to Steven. However, in a bittersweet twist of fate, Rose had to sacrifice her physical form to bring Steven into the world. Her gemstone, containing her essence, became attached to Steven's belly button. Now, despite this incredible burden, the Crystal Gems wholeheartedly accepted Steven as their own, showering him with love and care. And now, in the year 2013, Steven is a 13-year-old boy who lives in a beach house incorporated inside the Crystal Temple and is accompanied by Pearl, Garnet, and Amethyst, who are his mentors and caretakers. And that, my friends, is the entire origin story of the Diamond Authority and the Crystal Gems. Whew, okay, now we can finally move on to the first episode of the show. This one day, Steven's gem starts glowing, and the Crystal Gems took it upon themselves to train Steven in the fine art of weapon summoning. And guess what? The kid pulls out a shield! But not just any shield. It's the same one Rose used to shield them from the corruption beam. So picture this. Thousands of years pass by, and Earth is all chill and peaceful. The crystal gems are doing their thing, having a good time, but then, out of nowhere, this weird surveillance orb shows up in the sky, and you can bet your gems that it's bad news. The crystal gems freak out, scrambling to find a solution. They grab Rose's trusty laser cannon and blast that orb into smithereens. Crisis averted. Well, for now. But let's face it, things are about to get real crazy. Anyways, with Steven's newly discovered abilities, he starts training and going on serious missions with the crystal gems. During his adventures, he meets Connie for the first time and becomes good friends with her later on. He also comes across a pink-colored lion that follows him home. Later, he learns that this lion belonged to his mother Rose, who had revived it using her healing abilities. The lion also has a pocket dimension inside of it where Rose used to store precious items and weapons, including Bismuth's bubble. But more on that later. So fast forward a bit, and Pearl decides to give Steven a mirror as a gift. Little did they all know that it was the very same mirror that had trapped Lapis Lazuli inside for, forever. Steven accidentally sets Lapis free from her mirror prison, and guys, let me just tell you, it's not exactly a warm and fuzzy reunion. Lapis goes full-on rogue mode and pulls a major power move. She straight up steals the entire ocean and plans to wipe out the whole planet. Steven tries to reason with her, explaining that things have changed on Earth, and it's not the same old place anymore. While Lapis might not be fully convinced, she at least returns the ocean. So, crisis averted, sort of. Now, Steven decides to test out his gem powers on some watermelons. But guess what? He accidentally turns them into these little sentient watermelon beings. Yeah, you heard me right. Living, breathing watermelons. Anyways, remember how they destroyed a homeworld surveillance device at the start of the season? Well, that attracts the attention of Peridot, a homeworld gem who is tasked with the inspection of the cluster and its prototypes. Anyways, she arrives on Earth using a warp pad, but after she leaves for homeworld to report gem activity, Garnet destroys the pad so she could not return. However, Peridot returns on a warship with Lapis and Jasper. We already know about Lapis, but guys, Jasper is no joke, let me just tell you. She is a force to be reckoned with, having a reputation for taking down a whopping 80 crystal gems during her debut. Jasper fought until the end of the war and is one of many gems who were able to evacuate the Earth when the diamonds used the corrupting light. Anyways, now that she's back, she easily defeats the crystal gems and believes that Steven is actually rose quartz. This leads to all of our beloved crystal gems being captured and imprisoned on a ship bound for homeworld. Things really take a wild turn inside the ship, though. Steven discovers the incredible truth that Garnet is actually a fusion of Ruby and Sapphire. And with this newfound knowledge, Garnet is ready to settle the score with Jasper. The epic showdown leads to a chaotic turn of events as the ship crashes back onto Earth, causing quite a commotion. But the trouble doesn't stop there. Jasper, determined to gain the upper hand, tries to fuse with Lapis and forms a massive, menacing monster known as Malachite. It's a fierce battle, but Lapis surprises everyone by betraying Jasper and taking them both down into the depths of the ocean. Afterward, Steven convinces Connie to not be with him for her own protection. But Connie persists and even learns sword fighting from Pearl so Steven can stop worrying about her. At this point, Peridot is still roaming on Earth trying to contact the homeworld, and the crystal gems are looking for her everywhere. They come across her in kindergarten, but she manages to slip away. However, the crystal gems do manage to get a hold of her later and poof her. When she regains her physical form again, she explains that she was only there to inspect the cluster, which will soon emerge and destroy the whole planet. She is scared to death, thinking the crystal gems will shatter her, but with kindness and a good heart, Steven manages to comfort her. After learning the truth about the cluster, the gang decides to build a machine that would dig to the center of the Earth to confront the cluster. Sometime later, Peridot manages to establish contact with Yellow Diamond, and the crystal gems are understandably worried that she might spill the beans about their existence. However, to their grand surprise, she is only pretending to maintain communication to avoid raising suspicion from Yellow Diamond. She finally takes a stand for herself and betrays the Yellow Diamond. And this makes Peridot an official member of the Crystal Gems. After a while, things start shaking and rattling because of the cluster acting up. But another issue is already on the table. So you remember those watermelon dudes that Steven accidentally brought to life, well, they've gone and built their own mini-civilization on this island. And get this, Steven can actually chat with them in his mind. So anyways, Steven taps into his watermelon communication skills and learns that malachite has been spotted lurking around the island. With no time to waste, the crystal gems divide into two teams. Peridot and Steven set off on a daring mission to confront the cluster. Meanwhile, the rest of the crystal gems gear up for an epic showdown with malachite on the island. In a nutshell, Steven uses his special powers to talk to the cluster and convinces it not to destroy the planet. He contains the cluster inside this bubble thing, and it's no longer a threat to the planet. At the same time, Garnet, Pearl, and Amethyst have that epic fight with malachite. They manage to separate Jasper and Lapis, which is a big win, but unfortunately, Jasper escapes. On the bright side, Lapis is no longer controlled by the fusion and becomes friendlier with the crystal gems. In the meantime, things are going well between Steven and Connie. The two go on a mission together and even fuse with each other to become Stevani. Turns out, gems can fuse with humans as well, and since Steven is half-human, he can fuse with Connie. During their mission, the crystal gems come face to face with Jasper, who's been gathering corrupted gems to build an army. Amethyst bravely takes on Jasper, but gets defeated and poofed. However, Stevani, the fusion of Steven and Connie, steps up and proves to be a powerful adversary. In a very intense battle, Stevani manages to poof Jasper and turns the tables on her. Returning to the kindergarten, the crystal gems run into Jasper again, still busy rounding up corrupted gems. Amethyst steps up to fight her again, but it's clear that she needs some backup. Steven's kind words and empathy lead to a hug, and boom! Smoky Quartz is born. They team up, swinging a yo-yo around and giving Jasper a real run for her money. Jasper fuses with a corrupted gem, forming Zebra Jasper. However, this fusion absolutely backfires, causing Jasper herself to become corrupted. As Jasper's corruption spreads, she begins to mutter about Rose, revealing her deep-seated grudge. Peridot intervenes and poofs Jasper, trapping her in a bubble and putting a stop to her wicked schemes. Later on, Steven discovers Bismuth's bubble hidden within the Lion Dimension and releases her. Pearl and Garnet are overjoyed to reunite with their long-lost comrade, and to give her a sense of the war's aftermath, they take her to the Strawberry Battlefield. Together, they then visit the forge where Bismuth used to craft weapons for the crystal gems, reminiscing about their shared history and the battles they fought together. During their time at the forge, Bismuth creates a powerful weapon called the Breaking Point, specifically for Steven, which can shatter gems on impact. However, the nature of the weapon raises concerns for Steven, leading to a confrontation between him and Bismuth. In the heated exchange, Steven manages to poof Bismuth, encasing her in a bubble once again. Later, Steven starts having these super creepy nightmares that mess with his whole vibe. Greg decides to figure out what's causing these messed up dreams. Their journey takes them all the way to Korea, where they stumble upon this mysterious blue palanquin thingy. And guess what? They run into none other than Blue Diamond herself, still crying her eyes out over her sister's loss after all these years. Oh, and get this. The very spot they're standing at is where Pink Diamond got shattered. Greg comforts her, claiming he lost someone precious to him as well, which surprises Blue as a puny human is capable of understanding her emotions. And how does she reward him? By abduction and taking him to the homeworld. Wow. Then the crystal gems locate and follow Greg into this place called the Human Zoo, which was built back in the day when Pink Diamond first expressed the desire to preserve human life. Blue mistook her intentions and built a human zoo, which she populated with humans at that time. After the death of Pink, she preserved its life as a tribute to her long-lost sister. Inside, they find a whole civilization that is birthed from the descendants of the first inhabitants of the zoo. After locating Greg, the gang tries to make an escape, but not before entering Pink Diamond's throne room and barely dodging Yellow and Blue, who are discussing whether to destroy Earth or not. So after a while, everything's going, relatively smooth for Steven and the gang on Earth, until things take a dark turn. This gem called Aquamarine starts snatching up humans from Beach City. Turns out, she's doing it on orders from Blue Diamond herself, who wants to gather up humans for her fancy human zoo. Steven decides that he's had enough of this nonsense and tells Aquamarine that he is Rose Quartz, the gem responsible for shattering Pink Diamond. He agrees to go with her to Homeworld, hoping that he can talk some sense into the diamonds and make them back off from Earth. Now, Steven is accompanied by his friend Lars, who, let's be real, up until now, he wasn't very important to the storyline. Anyways, they make their way to Homeworld, and things take a serious turn. Steven finds himself on trial for the supposed crime of shattering Pink Diamond. The court asks him to explain what happened, and he comes up with an explanation. But hold on, his attorney objects and claims that the story doesn't add up. He suggests that the real culprit must be someone close to Pink Diamond and points the finger at one of the diamonds themselves, which goes as well as you would expect. Yellow Diamond loses her cool and poofs both attorneys, leaving Steven and Lars to escape in the midst of all the chaos. As they escape, they meet these defective gems who are hiding from the homeworld in a cave. Soon after, a killer robot chases after them, and Lars heroically sacrifices himself to save many lives. When Steven sheds tears all over the lifeless body of Lars, he miraculously comes back to life just like his mother revived her dead pet lion. But Lars is now all pink and even possesses a pocket dimension inside of his hair, just like the lion back on Earth. Using this newfound ability, Steven goes back to Earth, making a daring escape from Homeworld. Meanwhile, Lars befriends the off-color gems and manages to steal a spaceship from the Homeworld. Together, they embark on a series of thrilling space adventures. Now back on Earth, in the episode A Single Pale Rose, we have the biggest plot twist of the entire series. Okay, so you know how Pearl used to be a former servant of Pink and then sided with Rose to shatter her? Well, as it turns out, Rose Quartz is Pink Diamond. Yup, you heard that right. As it turns out, Pink was the one who wanted to preserve human life. However, upon failing to convince her sisters to stop the colonization, she took the difficult decision to stage her own shattering at the hands of Pearl. She then shapeshifted into Rose to fit in and led the rebellion to freedom against her own sisters. How wild is that? The other crystal gems weren't so happy about this revelation, but later came around as it didn't matter that much to them. But for us, this was the biggest plot twist of the entire show. Sometime later, the group is presented with good news: the marriage of Ruby and Sapphire as Garnet. Steven frees Bismuth as a surprise guest, and this time, she actually lets go of her killer instincts. Unfortunately, the wedding is crashed by Yellow and Blue Diamond, who have returned to take revenge. Of course. Steven tries to tell them that Rose was pink all along, and after he emits Pink Diamond's aura from his gem, the diamonds calm down. At this time, Lapis also officially joins the crystal gems to fight off the homeworld. Steven then shows them the corruption they caused and requests them to revert it, but they need the help of White Diamond to do so. So Steven goes to Homeworld to convince her to undo the corruption. But as you should expect by now, things go south and White ends up poofing everyone except Steven. She even separates his gem from his body in hopes of seeing her sister again. But instead, it gives rise to Pink Steven, who manages to knock some sense into her. Ultimately, the entire gang returns to the Earth and the diamonds undo the corruption they did thousands of years ago. Okay, so now let's talk about the movie. After several thousand years of homeworld invasion, the Earth is finally free and the crystal gems can finally rest. Steven and Connie have officially started dating, but she is off to summer camp for the remainder of the movie. Just as things look calm and quiet, a giant drill lands on Earth, and out comes an angry-looking gem called Spinel. She has this pink scythe that has the ability to poof gems, and her ultimate goal is to destroy the whole planet. They fight, and crystal gems get poofed, but Steven snatches her weapon and poofs her right back. Later, when they all regain their physical form, Steven learns that they have lost their memories. Spinel also lost her memories, and is now a jolly, cheerful gem who calls Steven her best friend. Anyways, Steven spends the next few days helping the gems regain their memories, and later learns the truth about Spinel. Okay, so you see, she was Pink Diamond's play buddy at first, but once she was allowed her own colony, she asked Spinel to stand still and await her return. Spinel stood there for 6,000 years until she finally learned what happened to her. Steven empathizes with her and convinces her to stop this madness, but she refuses to listen because she thinks Steven will just use her like Pink did. As a result, Steven has to use force, but worry not, the diamonds have arrived on Earth at the worst time. Steven explains to them who Spinel is, and they immediately grow a liking to her. They decide to take her back to the homeworld as she reminds them of Pink, and, well, the crisis is finally averted. So after everything the Earth has gone through, the world is truly finally free from any intergalactic danger. The crystal gems have opened Little Homeschool where they teach gems how to live their lives and find a purpose. Everyone has shown up except for one gem, Jasper. She isolated herself from the world ever since the diamonds undid the corruption. So when Steven went to visit her, things didn't go so smoothly. They started fighting, but Steven started to glow pink and kicked her ass, which impressed her. Sometime later, a group of rose quartz visits the Earth, and one of them looks exactly like Steven's mother, which kind of messes Steven up. To cope with his shock, Steven takes on the role of a healer and encounters Pink Pearl, who has a crack in her eye. Unable to fix her physical wound, he takes her to the reef where gems are created. However, they discover that her injury is emotional, inflicted by Pink Diamond when she was denied her own colony. This quarrel between the two pearls triggers Steven's pink powers while unleashing his rage. The reef misinterprets his intentions, attempting to rejuvenate the pearls, but they narrowly escape. Although the pearls reconcile, Steven remains burdened by guilt for his actions. Sometime later, Steven learns that his pals Sadie and Lars have decided to go their separate ways after school. Things take a dramatic turn during the graduation ceremony when Steven accidentally traps everyone inside of a bubble while feeling overwhelmed and lonely. Now, inside this bubble, Sadie explains that she and Lars couldn't make their relationship work due to different interests. Worried that his friends will move on and forget about him, Steven finds solace when they assure him that they'll always be there for him as friends. As the bubble bursts, they're set free. However, this incident leaves Steven with a deep sense of isolation and foreshadows more challenging times to come. Steven starts having terrible nightmares and turns pink during his sleep. Peridot tries to help by making a reboot of his favorite show using his dreams, but it ends up taking a toll on Steven. Things are just getting worse and worse for my man. After feeling distant from Connie, Steven seeks advice from Ruby and Sapphire, the loving couple, who suggests that he propose to her, an idea that turns out to be not their best. He plans a romantic evening and takes the leap, only to face rejection. Kudos to Connie for handling it with grace. I mean, she doesn't outright say no, but rather expresses that it's just not the right time. This proves to be the breaking point for Steven, as his condition worsens and even his limbs begin to grow abnormally. Concerned, Connie takes him to her mother, who's a doctor, and after examining him, she diagnoses him with PTSD due to the overwhelming experiences that he's faced at such a young age. As Steven continues to struggle, his father arrives at just the right moment, and his presence helps Steven to finally break down and find solace. During their road trip, tensions rise between Steven and his father as Steven blames Greg for involving himself with the gems and making his life difficult. In a fit of frustration, Steven glows pink and pulls the steering wheel while driving. Fortunately, no one gets hurt, but the incident deepens the rift between Steven and his father, leaving Steven wanting nothing to do with him at that moment. In his quest for self-discovery, Steven seeks the guidance of Jasper and undergoes intense training. However, a tragic accident occurs during a session, resulting in Jasper's shattering. Filled with remorse, Steven manages to revive her using aura potions. But this experience leaves him questioning his own identity and the consequences of his actions. Steven even visits Homeworld to seek help, but ends up hurting the white diamond and runs off to the Earth. Now back at home, Steven puts on a brave face, acting like everything's cool while deep down, he's absolutely falling apart. He keeps trying to do well, but it's like he's got a talent for messing things up. His pals will never give up on him though. They keep pushing him to talk it out, and eventually, he can't hold it in any longer and admits that he feels like a total monster. In a crazy twist, Steven transforms into a giant pink monster, hell-bent on destroying the city. Despite their best efforts, his friends can only hold him off temporarily. The diamonds show up, up and they're shocked to see Steven in this state. Even the cluster joins the chaos to keep him in check. I mean, this is a heartbreaking moment for his friends as they watch him suffer. But then, Connie arrives and drops some truth bombs. She tells everyone to prioritize Steven's well-being above all else. And finally, Connie's kiss and their heartfelt words bring him back to his human self. As he sees himself surrounded by his friends, he finally breaks down, letting go of all the pain that he's been carrying. After some time of healing and self-reflection, Steven feels the need to embark on a personal journey to explore his human side. He gathers his friends at the homeschool and shares his decision to leave Beach City, which brings a wave of sadness among them. As the time to leave approaches, Steven cannot help but notice that his closest friends, Garnet, Pearl, and Amethyst, seem unusually calm and supportive of his decision to go out on his adventure. He tries to express that it's okay for them to feel sad, but they insist that it's a positive thing and encourage him to embrace his journey. However, once he expresses his frustration on the matter, the crystal gems break down, claiming that they were only putting on a strong front to support their best friend. They all jump in for a collective hug, and after saying proper goodbyes, our boy Steven begins his journey to travel the world. Well guys, this was the entire timeline of Steven Universe so far. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon for similar content.